And we're live.
Thank you, Larry, the Liberty Guy. Welcome back to In the Dugout. This is Mike Stenhouse, your host, and I am speaking you as you watch. I'm speaking to you from Idaho, where I am this week for a 3-day business trip. A lot to talk to you about. So it's just going to be me today, along with a few visuals. Tomorrow, we're going to have an encore presentation with an introduction by Larry, the Liberty Guy. To this, we've come, the amazing aria for freedom, sung by Claire Stoutmiller, a Rhode Island opera star. So we'll have an encore, popular demand. The views on that video will be going up. If you didn't see our show last week with Claire, you got to tune in tomorrow. If you did see the show, you're probably going to watch again because it's just amazing stuff. Her insights, the words that were written back in the 1940s against totalitarian government, so are just coming true again here. It's deja vu all over again with this totalitarian government stuff. It's just amazing what's going on. So please tune in tomorrow. Then Thursday, Larry Liberty Guy be with you, primarily talking with Dr. Boston to talk about all things COVID. You don't need me for that. Larry the Liberty Guy's got great hands on that. And Dr. Boston, as you know, he's got more. I wish we had 2 hours with him every week. So today I'm going to talk. First, I'm going to put my cap on. This is a Rocky Hill School. This is a Rhode Island private school that I visited and spoke at many, many years ago. It's the only hat I have of a Rhode Island school. And since we're going to be talking about critical race theory, we're going to be talking about it in schools, in academia. What is critical race theory? What are they going to probably be trying to teach kids in schools and in academia? And then how this was the basis for all this embarrassment that's happening with the South Kingstown School Committee. Just the complete way they've mishandled the situation from a concerned mom, and how the media has, I don't want to say turned against the mom. Again, think that a school committee, so a government entity, putting on the agenda consideration to sue a private tax-paying mother, a resident of that town. And somehow the focus is being shifted on the mother by many members in the media, not the inane, unethical, immoral activities of the school committee and of this larger push to inculcate our kids and indoctrinate them with this divisive critical race theory. But I'm going to start today first. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to start today first with an update on an issue that we have been following very closely over the years, and that's in the last 15 months, critical, and that's a transportation and climate initiative. This is that TCI gas tax. It died in Connecticut over the weekend. All right, and as you can see in our tweet from our center, Rhode Island's now just one of 2 states left. Originally, I think there was something like 14 states, if you include the District of Columbia, who were going to support this. Then last December, only 3 states in the District of Columbia actually signed on to the final plan. It was that bad. There are only 3 states signed on. Well, over the weekend, one of those 3 states unsigned, Connecticut. That leaves only Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Now, Charlie Baker, some of you might remember saying he was my basketball teammate at Harvard. He was a pretty good basketball player. He's a big guy, big, strong, lefty, burly rebounder. The governor of Massachusetts, this was his baby. He was looking for it for funding so he could fund all his mass transit promises that he made, because he knew he couldn't just impose a tax on people. So why not let some third-party group of bureaucrats impose a gas tax? We can blame it on them, but at least he'll get his money for his infrastructure. And of course, Gina Raimondo, then governor, was right by his side, basically the right-hand man, right-hand woman, if you would, to Charlie Baker on this. So it's only Rhode Island and Massachusetts are the only 2 states standing. All the other 12 states dropped out. That's how bad this plan is, despite what they try to tell you. And then I commented that it's even worse now for Rhode Island to consider. We know this governor has expressed sort of support for it. We know the General Assembly leaders, since Mattiello left, I mean, it's just whatever the left wants, the left is getting under CRT, the environmental left in this case. This looked like it was headed for passage, but I don't know now that Connecticut's out. And if I get a chance to testify, I'm going to talk about what I put right here. You know, it was one thing when Rhode Island was sandwiched, you know, if all three states, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, had done this, then regionally, Southern New England regionally, there'd be sort of parity. But if now only Rhode Island and Massachusetts might consider raising gas taxes, and it's going to go up by way, way more than the 5 cents a gallon. Talking about it has to. If they're going to achieve any reduction in driving, it has to, either the tax has to go way up or the supplies have to get cut way down, which means long gas lines again, which means gas line shortages again, which means you don't get to live your life in the convenient way you want with your own car. That's what this is all about. Eliminating driving of gasoline powered cars. And they want to force it on you, either by hiking the price so much or by reducing the supply so much. Right? That's the truth. With Connecticut now out of the picture, we've now got a border problem. We've got a competitive problem. Just think of convenience stores on the border, whether you're in Foster or West Greenwich or Coventry or Westerly or Richmond or Charahoe. Charahoe is Richmond. Just think, if you're down there, a border town with Connecticut, your retailers, your gas stations, convenience stores are going to be a major disadvantage because our gas prices are going to be way up here, but the gas taxes in Connecticut will have kept it where they are right now. And that's going to present major problems. We must not pass this around. I mean, this is supposed to be a regional compact. Rhode Island and Massachusetts, I'm sorry, do not make up a region. This was originally supposed to be 14 states. Now it's down to 2. Guess who one of the last 2 are? That's right, our state. So we have a petition. Go to rifreedom.org/TCI. You can sign the petition to say no TCI gas taxes in our state. It's bad policy to begin with. And now the fact that our neighboring state in Massachusetts is out, it sets up such a competitive disadvantage for us. It will crush those retailers and gas stations and energy marketing companies in our state. So just stay tuned. The Senate bill has had a hearing. The House bill is yet to be heard. I'm glad to see it's not this week because I'm out of town, as you know, right now in Idaho. And so when I get back, I know I'll be looking for that bill, have a chance to testify. All right, other news throughout the state. We also have on Thursday, there's going to be another pro Second Amendment rally at the State House from 3 to 7 p.m. Thursday, June 10th. You know, all kinds of legislation geared up in the General Assembly this year. It's unclear what's going to be seriously considered or put to a vote. It's totally up to leadership. Under Speaker Mattiello, who received an A from the Second Amendment groups, he didn't let any of those big bills come forward. I don't have that confidence this year. So this is an important rally, which I was in town, but you can see the information there. A rally this Thursday, 3 to 7 at the State House, if you want to preserve your Second Amendment rights in this state. I mean, some of this stuff might be unconstitutional, but if the bill passes, it could take years to litigate. So let's try to put the pressure on and not have them pass this legislation that will infringe on your rights. All right, critical race theory. Let's talk about this quite a bit right now. What is it? Where did it come from? How are they thinking of applying it in our schools, in corporate boardrooms, across academia, higher education levels? When state universities or public schools or municipalities, state or federal governments promote this stuff as training for employees, I would call this government-sponsored racism, because that's what it is. Racism, you can look at any number of definitions of it. But most of them will say racism is when you broadly categorize a person or a group of people based on their skin color. In this case, we'll stick to as either superior or inferior to some other group of people who might have a different skin color or other characteristic. That's racism. And critical race theory says that whites are implicitly biased and that blacks and other minorities are implicitly victims. That's racism. We've got we'll be launching, well, we just launched today a statewide petition to end the indoctrination of our students. And we're going to get into that in a second, but I want to bring it up right up front. You go to rifreedom.org, right at the top left, right in the top left. I'm not going to bring it up here on the website, but you'll see sign the petition to stop the indoctrination of our kids. Please, when you sign that petition, not only are we collecting signatures to present to state or local lawmakers in the future, but it also sends an email out to 8 or 9 education officials throughout the state. Some elected, some not elected. So you're doing a double duty when you go to rifreedom.org and you look for that stop the indoctrination of our kids. Critical, I took part, critical race theory is literally, okay, I mean this literally. It's not a conservative talking point. Critical race theory is right out of, it's a copycat of the Marxist playbook of something called critical theory. All right, I'm going to get more into that in a second. It's all a con. All right, critical theory was developed by Karl Marx and used by the communists in Russia and the Soviet Union and other totalitarian governments for decades. It's now evolved just by substituting a few words into critical race theory. So critical theory became critical race theory. We'll talk about critical theory in just a second. But it's a big con job because it's all based on a lie, at least in our country, at least in modern day times. They want you to believe that there's systematic racism and oppression based on race, systematic, institutional, largely prevalent. That racism is so pervasive in our country that neither the oppressors or the oppressed can escape. And it really took on added significance this year, or last year, I should say, when the question of systematic racism in police forces. That police forces are systematically racist. And then they extended it, that every time you want to ensure voter integrity, that the right person is voting who is eligible and legal to vote, they now want to call that voter suppression. That's the oppressed again against the oppressors against the oppressed. And then they want you to believe that equity, all right, is the solution to solve racism. Remember the difference between equity and equality. Equality is a noble goal where everyone is treated the same way in theory, under the law, in the justice system, when it comes to employment opportunities or whatever else, social. That's equality. Everyone has the same opportunity. No one group is favored over another group. Equity is an outcome. We want to make sure that every person or every group of people experience the exact same outcome. Whether they had the innate capacity to get there, whether they worked hard to get there, whether bad luck got some there and not others there, whether God's divine plan meant it for some or other, but they want to ensure equity. And when you try to ensure equity, you have to infringe on the first tenet, equality. Because in order to ensure that person B gets the same as person A, if they didn't earn it or circumstances, then they have to take something from person A or have to elevate person B at the expense of person A. We cannot ensure equal outcomes. That's equity. We cannot do that. So the whole critical race theory, at least the race theory, again, is based on lies and assumptions that just aren't true. Yet these assumptions, these lies seem to be more pervasive. They seem to be growing stronger. And a lot of left-wing activists who have selfish interest in this narrative, either they become a leader or they can get a job, or like the head of BLM, they can buy 3 or 4 houses totaling in the millions of dollars. They get famous on the media. They're succeeding in spreading their message and infecting. And I don't understand how people are so weak-minded to be infected by such obvious lies, but they are. We're going to talk about that in South Kingston in a minute. It's just amazing to me how so many people just have no capacity to see the truth or to stand up against falsehoods, obvious falsehoods. But they want you to believe that everything in America is racist by default, and that only massive government intervention, which means more control over your lives, can save us from ourselves. That's basically what they're saying. You need government to save you from you and your neighbors and all the other oppressors out there. Now, not only is this a lie, these assumptions, but in Montana, their attorney general has taken the extraordinary step of saying that most of these critical race theory teachings and some of the activities or actions they promote are actually illegal, and that they're discriminatory. It's illegal to be discriminatory. We try to preserve equality in our country and in our society. Equality. We cannot ensure equity and equitable outcomes. And when we do discriminate, regardless of who's discriminated against who, it's illegal. And the Montana Attorney General, we'll see how far he gets. I don't know exactly what action, but he's put that out. Now, again, I'm going to get into details in just a second, but here's a few things to keep in mind. Are you buying all this crap? Is someone you know, a child, a parent, a brother, a sister, a coworker? Are they buying this stuff? Are they brainwashed? Where they can't see the forest through the trees, that they think by imposing their own kind of racism that somehow that is going to solve the original perceived, and again, emphasis on perceived problem of systematic racism that exists. I think that's these school committee members in South Kingston really think they're fighting race, that you can fight racism with racism. You can fight fire with fire. I don't think you can fight racism with racism. But they don't see it that way. They see it as just the first part, fighting racism. Are you buying it? Is the rest of society buying it? I think the left and the Democrats Party, which is largely behind all this, not uniformly, are losing ground among voters, against open-minded, moderate, independent voters. Not only this systematic police racism, defunding the police, which all extend from this view that we'll get into, but the border issues, the just opening of the southern border, and all the problem people and problems that are now flooding across our border. And now we get into inculcating and indoctrinating our kids with racist theories that they defend as a way to fight race. I mean, I think they're going to lose a lot of votes. I even think they're losing among themselves. I've been saying for years, and this is really important. This is, and I've been saying this for years. The only way our state's going to get saved, we need Democrats in positions of authority or influence to stand up and say, enough of this progressive left agenda. This is not what the Democratic Party once stood for. This is not liberalism, all right? But this progressive left, woke, critical race theory, gender neutral stuff, that is not liberalism. That is not traditional Democrat liberalism. So you've heard me say it many times, that there is a rift. Nobody's willing to act on that rift yet, but there is a rift among the left, the more moderate, traditional, Kennedy thinking Democrats who love this country, Democrats who believe in God, liberal Democrats who believe in free speech. Again, free speech was originally a liberal cry. Liberals differed in conservatives. They just wanted more taxation and more government services, but they didn't want to base those on race. Just if you were low income or whatever, and maybe the rich should pay a little bit more. But they were patriots. They were God-fearing patriots, free speech loving, God-fearing patriots. But that's not what the progressive left is. They don't like this country. They don't believe in God, as you heard Claire Stockmuller, our opera singer, say from the words of her song. They want you to pray to men and their institutions, not to God anymore. They don't believe in free speech. They want to shut you down. Just look at all the cancel culture stuff that's going on. In this state, we've been canceled a few times on YouTube. Local media now ignores us, or tries to. That's not what liberalism was. So there's even a rift. So while there's a rift between left and right and independents, there's even a rift now going on in the Democrat Party and left wing. And I'm just waiting for the day when Dan McKee has blown it twice. Speaker Matty, he refuses. They believe that they have to appease the progressive left and accept these theories that they don't believe in, like critical race theory, like systematic racism. They believe they have to accept those and appease those people if they're going to win any other elections, or certainly any primary elections in the Democrat Party. It's what they believe. It's a false belief. Yes, the media is on the side of the far left. Yes, you're going to get some bad coverage, but it doesn't mean you're going to lose elections. Former Speaker Mattiello sort of stood up. He said, I'm going to be the firewall against the progressive. Well, it wasn't a firewall, because even he politically, in order to stay in power, had to give in to them a lot. He let a lot of big stuff through, but he didn't let everything through. Everything is going through this year. We had hoped that Dan McKee would stand up and say, enough. This is not, I know it's not what he believed in. I know he's by nature a moderate guy, Governor McKee, but yet he is owned by the progressive left. And it's sad to see. I mean, it's so weak of a person, regardless of the cost, to abandon your principles for some political expedient. Hell, in this country, we even had people die fighting wars for their beliefs, first in the Revolutionary War, then in the Civil War. That's how strong people will stand for their principles. But nobody, I've not seen anyone in this state, in the government, in a position of power in the government, stand up and say no, flat out no, and go against the divisive agenda of the far left. And until that happens, our state's going to continue to slide. I mean, how many things can we be bottom 10 or last in? Worst business climate, the worst jobs recovery, the worst gross domestic product increases, those former two since trying to recover from the pandemic. We're going to continue to slide until the Democrat Party once again becomes a party of traditional liberals. Listen, we disagree with liberalism, but as a matter of economic policy largely. But again, at least liberals were God-fearing, patriotic, speech-loving, free speech-loving political party back then. But the progressive left, with the help from the media, has taken it all. So I think there's going to be, maybe they're going to be quiet revolts, but I think the far left is going to lose the middle, and they're going to lose a lot of other Democrats. They keep going with this really drastic stuff. And critical race theory in schools, inculcating our kids, indoctrinating our kids with this garbage, is the biggest among them. Take a look at this chart. So this shows the growth, the trends in public schooling over the last 50 years. You can see in the green and the red down here that reading and math scores have pretty much stayed flat. Went up for a little while and they're going back down again. Science scores, the purple down here, down. But look at the number. Here's this dotted line is how fast student enrollment has either gone down here or up here. So it went down for a while. We have a net positive increase, it looks like, of about 8% in the last 50 years, the number of students in public schools. Look at the number of employees. So, I mean, it's up almost 100%. We've added 10, 11, 12 times more employees than we have students. So again, is education about the kids and them receiving good education, or is it about parents and whatever agenda, or adults, I should say, or is it about adults and whatever political agenda they're bringing to the table? And then, of course, look at the costs. The costs have almost tripled over that time. So we are literally throwing money here to advance agenda driven by adult bureaucrats, administrators, and teachers, while our children and our student levels are stagnant. And it's this advancement of an adult political agenda that is the basis of all these problems you're seeing with these concerns among parents, and which fueled the problems that are still ongoing in South Kingston. So, you know, we showed you we just talked about how this theory that everything is racist, that white supremacy, everything else that goes with it, is what they want to start teaching kids at schools. Now, we showed you this last week, but I want to show it to you again before we get into some details of exactly what another view of why critical race theory is so bad. If you can hold on one second, let me bring this up. Let me share my screen. Now, you have probably seen this. It's going viral, but again, just to make the point, we're going to drive it home today. Click that. All right, here we go.
Daddy teaches you can be anything in this world that you want to be, right? Don't Daddy teach you that?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're black or white or any color.
Doesn't matter if you're black, white, brown, yellow, right?
Black.
And how we treat people is based on who they are and not what color they are.
And if they're nice and smart.
See, this is how children think right here. Critical race theory wants to end that. Not with my children. It's not gonna happen. My baby's gonna know that no matter what she wants to be in life, all she has to do is work hard, and she can become that.
Work hard, even though you don't know anyone. You can make friends.
Yeah, you can make friends, no matter what color they are. So we need to stop CRT. Period. Point blank. Children do not see skin color, man. They love everybody. If they're good people, they love them.
We pray for people that are hurt.
Daddy teaches you can.
Wow. Wow. So once again, is that just amazing? Now you tell me, can you tell me one person you know who honestly would like to adopt whites are evil, supremacists, blacks are victims mentality versus what you just saw with that adorable daughter and her father? But that is, and that daughter and father, that's exactly the sentiment of Martin Luther King. Critical race theory is not. It's really stunning that this has taken hold. And again, these are the concerns of Nicole Solis in South Kingston that fueled this just incredibly stupid, unethical, immoral, maybe even illegal. They might have even broken some Open Meeting Act laws by this childish and incompetent South Kingston School Committee. The mom, you know, it's so frustrating to see the media. Providence Journal, Go Local Prov, Channel 12, Tara Granahan Radio, completely missing the point. Completely missing the point. Yes, the mom was being a pain in the butt to the South Kingston School Committee, Nicole, because they wouldn't answer her questions. So he said, all right, you're not going to answer my question. I'm going to give you some questions. And she gave them a bunch load, tranches full of questions. But they wouldn't answer. How deep is this critical race theory baloney going in? My child of mine is going to school in South Kingston next year. And then they threatened to sue her at a public meeting on the agenda. Consider lawsuit against Nicole Solis. And then all things went to hell. And now but the media has taken the side of the school committee largely. They recognize they might overstep. Oh, is this mother, Nicole Solis, tied to some national racist group? No, she's not. I've talked to her. I know she's not. The one group they named, Nicole says no. The group says no. We weren't involved in those records requests. Oh, how could you have gotten so famous instantly on Fox News? There must be some evil left-wing racist group that you're working with that got you up to Fox News, says Tara Granahan. Baloney. Tara Granahan has no frigging clue what's going on. This is news. That's what news is. It's one of the hot topics in the whole country, this critical race theory, this racist stuff. And it's rare that a mother would stand up against the establishment and speak out. And it's even more rare that a school committee, a government entity would threaten to sue a private parent. So you take those three entities, those three issues, the newsworthiness of the topic, a strong, articulate mother, and a ridiculous threat of a lawsuit, of legal action against that mother. Yes, that makes for instant national news. Instant. Tara, it's not hard to understand. It doesn't have to be any devious motive, any racist group behind it for that to happen. Then the school committee says, well, we don't have any formal curriculum on that. All you got to do is listen to the town meeting, read the comments that Chairwoman Kaminsky said in the news media, talking about equity, social justice, we must end racism. Those are all the, what are the term they use now? Virtue signaling, is that it? That's all virtue signaling that, yeah, we're in favor of critical race theory, because that's everything critical race theory says. He says, I'm trying to find the exact words of Comiskey. We can't be distracted. This is in fulfilling these records with us. We can't be distracted from our efforts to make our schools more equitable. There's that word, equity. Inclusive, bingo, code word, dog whistle, virtue signaling, whatever you want to call it for critical race theory. And empowering by eradicating any harmful practices or prejudices through equity, that word again, and anti-racism teaching. Again, anti-racism teachings by preaching racism. I mean, what more do you need to know that this is the goal of the school committee, whether it's been implemented yet or not, whether it's on the damn school committee's website or not, whether any student there or teacher there says, I've never seen a CRT curriculum, it's coming. When you have that attitude by a chairperson and all the brainless people on that, members of that school committee, it's coming. Nicole Solis understood that. Nicole Solis tried to get the answers, and they threatened to sue her for wanting not to have her children and any children in that school district taught anti-American racist propaganda. It's understanding. This school committee has a complete lack of understanding of what its function is. Just like we showed you how education become about the adults, not the kids. These adults, these childish adults on this school committee are there not to serve the kids. They are there, it is obvious now, to advance a political agenda. Their words say it, their actions say it. All out, Nicole and some group that national group that she's not even affiliated with as racist without any substantiation is grounds enough to have ethical complaints filed and they should resign, right? And our Senate has called for the resignation of Chairwoman Kaminsky and Sarah Markey, the teachers union, NEA, National Education Association, union executive who also sits on that board. And we know these unions are publicly said, more important than the education of the kids is advancement of a social equity agenda. It's coming. You may not have it listed, it's coming. And everybody damn well knows it. Can we be honest? Hiding behind these pretenses. Oh, there's no official curriculum listed here. Baloney, it's coming. And then to sit there and allow yourself to hurl racial slurs and allow other parents or teachers to get up and hurl racial slurs at parents who are just concerned about their kids and not do anything to stop it. That school committee is an embarrassment. They should probably all resign, and maybe it'll come to that. They should all resign. And we've talked about it open. This is what they are. This is what wokeism is, right? Critical race theory is part of being woke. Part of being woke means I have blinders on and I only see what my woke masters tell me to see. I only say what they tell me to say, even if I don't have any understanding or can't do any of the core issues involved, or even if I can't do anything more than repeat the talking points they give me, I'm going to repeat them and repeat them. Yes, master. Yes, master. Yes, woke master. And part of those blinders, not only seeing what they want you to see, is you don't see anything else. They can't see the forest through the trees. They can't see how stupid their own actions are and how unsubstantiated these core beliefs are. That A, this systematic racism exists, and B, that government can get involved in such a way to ensure equity outcomes. We have called for the resignations of Chairwoman Comiskey and member Sarah Markey. And from what I can tell, we've had a lot of reaction to that. It sounds like a lot of groups on the ground are organizing a campaign to pressure those resignations to happen because they deserve to happen. Those school committee members and as a body failed in their responsibilities. Now I'm going to read you, before I get into where this all came from, I'm going to spend a few minutes reading to you some of the propaganda when it comes to critical race theory and gender equity that is being distributed in corporations, among government, and in academia. Again, this is just a graduate with blinders on, same as woke. This is what they're being taught. Only see what we tell. We're going to tell you what to think, not how to think. Again, a big difference between critical race theory and critical thinking. Critical thinking is exactly that. You think. Yeah, I hear from you way over here. I hear from you way over here. I see it all. I'm hearing it all. And I'm going to make my own critical judgment. Critical race theory in the left just wants you to see what they show you and to think how they tell you. Tunnel vision. I have a document here that was given to me by somebody who worked in corporate America. And it's from a training session that's being pushed around for the employees. This was adapted from a work apparently called Behaviors That Support Diversity, comes out of Oregon State University. They discuss, and this is presumably what our kids would be taught. Okay, I'm making a presumption here. I don't know what the critical race theory agenda or curriculum specifically looks like, but I do know what that curriculum looks like. Well, I'm talking about in schools, but I do know what it looks like in corporate America because I have a copy of it right in my hand. They want to teach you, and I'm going to put it in terms of kids, even though this was designed apparently for corporate America adults, I can't imagine it's going to be much different for the kids. They want to teach kids to be allies of the oppressed, to understand the oppressed. In this case, it's the racial minority or Black. Here's a few lines. Do the inner work to figure out a way to acknowledge how you participate in oppressive systems. And remember, to them, everything is oppressive. I want you to amplify the calls for wokeness, the calls for anti-racist racism. Amplify those calls without even thinking about it. Just amplify it. They talk about the oppressors as having heavy boots and the oppressed having no-toe shoes, and that the oppressed with their heavy boots are constantly stomping on the toes of those who are oppressed, who only have sandals. Even if you don't know it, you're stepping on their toes accidentally. You might stomp purposely. You might step on their toes accidentally. You don't even know you're stepping on their toes. You're just an evil person who oppresses without even knowing it if you're white. Allies, again, ally is someone who chooses to support anybody who claims that they're oppressed for racial reasons. And this, we'll keep it in this regard. There's a list. I'm not going to read you all the 10 things that allies need to know. Allies don't take breaks. You know why? Because the oppressed never get a break. Every day in their lives, whether they're a minority because of racism, whether they're a woman because of misogynism, every day the oppressed are being oppressed without getting a break, so you can never take a break from feeling your white guiltness. If you want to act in solidarity as an ally, you cannot retreat into your white privilege just because you don't want to engage. Why? Because the oppressed, they don't want to be impressed. They don't want to engage in that, but yet it happens to them all the time. So therefore, you cannot take a break from feeling guilty about it. Go to bed with it, sleep on it, dream about it, study about how you can recognize it and state it out loud that you're a white, privileged racist. And that how you're going to be an ally. We, the oppressors, have a choice whether we want to actively oppress somebody else or whether we're just doing it passively through our institutions. But the oppressed have no choice. They are constantly being oppressed. Allies focus on those who share their identity. Now, this is a great one. You know that if you're white, you have no right to talk to a black person or a brown person about racism because you can't possibly understand where people of color are coming from. You have no right to even engage in a discussion on it. Can only talk to your peers. Can only talk to other whites. This is what this curriculum is. All right, I'm reading right from this document. This is not me. This is on the document. As a person who benefits every single day from white privilege, it is not my place to engage people of color. That's not solidarity. I have responsibility to make other white people feel guilty, engage in discussions with them. Is any of this a unifying message? Think of that daughter, father we just played for you. That was completely unifying. Is any of this in any way unifying? As a white person, I have a responsibility to stand up to racism and to work to bring white people into the anti-racist conversation in a way that they can hear and access. We want to bring them into the anti-racist conversation by being racist to them. Reading more from the document. When you screw up and stomp on somebody's toes with your heavy boots, and they only being sandal-footed, you damage the trust and you anger those who you aligned yourself with, even if you're trying to align yourself and be an ally. Listening is important. Apologizing earnestly is important, but it's not enough. Working hard to make sure you are accountable to those you've wronged, and you've wronged people, whether you've meant to do it or not, whether you're aware of it or not. You have wronged people just by nature of your skin color. So trying to be accountable for that is important, but it's not enough. In addition to all of these, you have a responsibility to learn from your mistakes and to do better going forward. But don't expect marginalized people, those oppressed, it says right here, to do the emotional work for you and to forgive you. You can do all of this, but you still can't be forgiven for it. Don't expect them to basically carry your cross. That's your burden. We're not gonna, as oppressed people, we're not gonna let the oppressors off the hook by forgiving them. So in other words, you do all this stuff, you get taught all this anti-racist racism, but you'll never be forgiven. Now, of course, there's no God to forgive you. Society and the oppressed will never forgive. Why the hell are we doing it? That was a stupid question. But you see the silliness of all this? All right, so what? Oh, I saw this one over the weekend. This, it's psychiatrist who I think might be a professor at school, speaking at Yale, talked openly about her fantasies of murder. Now, she's white herself, by the way, a white woman. She is so guilt-ridden, they keep saying it's not enough to do this, it's not enough. They just told you it's not enough to do this, it's not enough to do that. Will never be forgiven. This person even says, well, if it's not enough to do those things, then I have fantasies of going out and murdering white people. She said in a lecture at Yale. And if I remember the video clip I saw, and seeing their blood drip everywhere off her hands or whatever the case may be. Oh, this is absolutely insanity. And yet it's people like this who want to teach your kids. No wonder Nicole Solis is upset. No wonder Nicole Solis asked questions. No wonder Nicole Solis put in hundreds of record requests. Is there anybody like this in the South Kingston school system? How do you know if you don't ask, if you don't root them out? And don't they deserve to be rooted out? What I can tell you is we're going to win this war. This is going to be a fad. But it's going to take you and me and a lot of others to stand up and fight, because we're the ones standing for equality and justice. We're the ones who are in the right in the eyes of our Constitution, in the eyes of Martin Luther King, and in the eyes of God. With the media's help, this critical race theory stuff has exploded. But as fast as it grew, it's going to blow up and die. You can help. Again, go to rifreedom.org. There's the top left, you'll see Stop the Indoctrination petition. Again, that petition will not only collect signatures, but will send an email to 8 to 10 local and statewide education officials, telling them to stop any racist, even if it's in the guise of being anti-racist, teachings in our school. Idaho and Oklahoma. Idaho, where I am right now, Idaho and Oklahoma have passed legislation banning state-sanctioned racism in public schools. We need a bill like that to pass them around. Of course, it won't, or else it's too woke. Those laws would prevent school districts from promoting race essentialism, collective guilt, some kind of neo form of segregation. In short, it will stop what I told you before. It will stop government-sponsored, state-sanctioned racism in the classroom. You can't fight racism with racism. There's going to be a massive shift in momentum on this, and woe be it any public official, education official who has a role in putting this garbage in front of our kids. But yet it's growing, seemingly growing. That's what the media tells you. I'm telling you, it's a myth. It's another one of the Never Never Land make-believe progressive left. All right. A few more minutes on the origins of critical race theory. And by the way, here's our no TCI gas tax cup. We walk the walk. The progressive left, again, these are all terms you've heard, but I'm just trying to tie them all together. The progressive left is now all about identity politics, that this group versus that group, special rights for this group at the expense of that group. And that's their first mistake. In our Constitution, there are no groups. Well, there's certainly no group rights. Individuals have rights. Equality among individuals. regardless of race, color, creed. So the first mistake is trying to assign special rights to special groups, special interest groups. And they do that via identity politics. I call it tribalism. You're a member of this tribe or this political tribe or that social tribe or that racial tribe. Tribalism by nature is divisive and bucolic. Bucolic, that's the right word? Warlike. Oh, bucolic's the opposite. Individuals have rights in this country. Every individual, the same rights. Groups don't have rights, and special groups don't have special rights. That's the first mistake. In fact, in my very first, I started this center just about 10 years ago. 10 years ago in August. And in my very first major blog post that fall in 2011, I talked about how the new left-wing agenda is so divisive. I have said often, I said it at a Providence Journal invited me to one of their forums they had. I can't remember what they called them. Public forums at Rhode Island College. I was the poking conservative on the panel. But I said then, the question is, what can we do to heal the wounds? And this is 2.5 years ago, before it got really crazy in the last year and a half. I said, we need to return to our core principles that unite. We need to at least have every American, at least almost every American, return to love of country and trust in God. I mean, that's our motto: in God we trust. At least we could have those two things that united. We love America and we have faith in God. That's what America was built on. That patriotism and that faith. We don't have it anymore. Communist left, the critical race theory left, does not believe in God. They believe, like the song says, to this we've come, that we now must pray to men and their institutions and not to God. And while that might be the most important thing spiritually, and it certainly can help us politically if we have that common ground, the most destructive politically, again, I'm not talking about your soul, but the most destructive political divisiveness we have are those who hate America. Donald Trump's America first, and what he said last weekend in North Carolina, Joe Biden seems like it's America last. America should suffer, many believe, because of its all kinds of unjust path, race or otherwise. And in that first blog I wrote 10 years ago, let me read to you from that. The biggest victims of the big government agenda are the very people that the policies portend, and I would say pretend, because now I might believe they're doing it on purpose. But anyway, as I wrote it, the biggest victims of big government are the very people that the policies pretend to serve. Only true freedom to pursue their own dreams can allow them to prosper. Race-based entitlements, welfare, and many other public service programs condemn them to dependence and low expectations, in a way institutionalizing them. This is not the America our founders envisioned. In fact, it is immoral, I wrote, to consider the poor as a homogeneous lot that is incapable of raising itself out of whatever morass they may be in. It is insulting, I wrote 10 years ago. People, including the underprivileged, will be more content when they achieve something based on their own merit and work. That the resulting self-esteem is the true meaning of happiness and the only way to achieve prosperity. End quote. Prosperity meaning it's not just about money and monetary and physical things. It's about happiness in the soul, happiness with your family, faith in God. That's prosperity. You're a prosperous person. You're just feeling good about life. That's prosperity. Maybe money has something to do with it, material belonging. Critical theory, all right? Critical theory on which all this is based was originally put forth around in the mid-1930s. All right, this was after decades of collaboration by the communists, Karl Marx and all the others, Lenin and whoever else, and others, whoever followed them. And it was specifically designed as a method to take over cultures, right? That was critical theory specifically has a political aim to it, to take over cultures. Western cultures especially. They had done a pretty good job by that time already taking over Russia. Soviet Union would soon follow. In order to take over culture, you've got to destroy it first, the culture, which means you have to destroy family, you have to destroy religion, you have to destroy education, you have to destroy business largely, and you have to destroy equal justice under the law. Any of this sound familiar? This is exactly what they're trying to do in our society, right here. All of this. They want the mom to be married to the government to raise the kids and be dependent on the government, not the father. When it comes to religion, we all know that. As the song says, they want you to worship man, not God. They're trying to destroy education by inculcating and indoctrinating our kids with divisive political agenda stuff. They want to control businesses. Maybe they don't want to destroy it, but they want to control it, so it serves their purposes. And they clearly want to destroy equal opportunity under the law. They want to punish those who are innocent, who they feel is guilty just because of their skin color, and they want to give a legal pass to others also because of their skin color. Just think of the rioters. Think of the different treatment under the law of the January 6th Capitol protesters versus the summer protesters and rioters in places like Portland and Seattle and Minneapolis and other places. So the strategy of the critical theorists is to infiltrate these institutions to erode the culture and create a counter hegemony. Now, I'm reading from notes I've taken from various seminars and other readings I've either been involved with or done. The three components of critical theory: an idealist vision for society. In our case, it's this identity politics, where everybody has their own identity and privileges. Criticize the current society as not meeting this vision: systematic racism, oppressed versus oppressors, right? All that. And inspire social activism. I think we're saying that in those towns we just mentioned and in so many other places. Oppressed by the privilege and the need to redistribute that privilege. Sound familiar? This all comes from critical theory. We'll get to critical race theory in just a second. This was the original communist critical theory from the 1930s. Now, to get to critical race theory, what the communists found is that pitting the wealthy against the non-wealthy wasn't going to work in places like America. Too many Americans value hard work, achievement, and money that you've rightfully earned, or any wealth that you've rightfully earned. So the idea of pitting the poor against the wealthy didn't work so well. So they abandoned it, but they kept to the same playbook and template. Instead, they said, instead of pitting the poor against the rich, we're going to pit minorities against the whites. Everything else the same. We're just going to substitute, instead of talking about wealth, we're going to talk about skin color. And that's how critical theory, I don't want to say it's tried and true, but it's a long standing, that's been true only in the sense that it has worked, not true in the sense that it's virtuous or correct. But they take this tried, old, tired theory and they put a new face on it, skin color face on it. And that's what critical race theory is. It's black libertarianism combined with radical feminism. And let's not forget the X versus XX versus XY. That's also another, let's pit women against men too. So black liberationism combined with radical feminism. And now we mix in LGBTQ theory and all that, those perceived injustices. And now we've arrived at critical race. Critical race theory is a worldview. It's a mindset. It's a doctrine. It's a lens through which every phenomenon is viewed. It's blinders. I only see things one way. I don't see the bigger picture. This is not just a movement of scholars and activists, as we've all come to realize. We used to kind of laugh at this stuff 5, 10 years ago. Now it's real, it's in our face, and it's everywhere. I mean, everywhere. It's the belief that whites created whiteness so as to oppose blackness. It's that simple. That's what it says. That racism is systematic in everything and that it's a byproduct of the original sin of this country. This country was founded on this worldview of whites in order to suppress blacks, and that everything, our system of justice, our code of law, our educational institutions, our cultural institutions, our religious institutions, everything was stained and racist because of this original racism. You talk about the original sin of Adam and Eve. They believe America has the original sin of racism. And unlike the religious who believe that Jesus Christ freed us from original sin, as the song says, to this we've come, these dark archangels think that they and their big government programs are the saviors, are the only ones that can save us from America's racist original sin. This is what they think. Okay, this is not me. This is what it is. They want to infiltrate. They want to destroy every institution they can get in. So the question now is, how many of us will be compliant sheeple? We're just going to sit back and let it all be and allow and to continue to open the door to this dangerous tool and let it start infecting our kids. We know it's already affecting our college students in large part. Do we want it to start affecting our K through 12 kids? This is what Nicole Solis was fighting. This is why the system fought back so hard against her. She dared to stand up. She would not be intimidated. Again, we have a statewide petition to end indoctrination in our schools, rifreedom.org. You'll see it right at the top left of our page. If you don't believe, I should say, if you don't believe that racism is a natural state of human affairs, if you don't believe that racism should be assumed in all phenomenons, all situations, if you don't believe that all previously accepted rights, moral, economic, religious tenets are invalid because of the original sin of racism in this country, then sign that petition. rifreedom.org, you'll see it in the upper left. Stop the indoctrination. And if you don't see it the way of the woke people, then you're an unwoke racist. You and me both are unwoke racists. And that only totalitarianism is required to stamp out instances of systematic racism. Only those I remember Milton Friedman, who are these angels that are going to reform our society in their image? Well, the song calls them dark archangels, and they are dark and they are evil indeed. Are we going to sit back and just let it all be? Critical race theory operates on the tenet or the assumption of structural determinism, that certain groups are destined to get certain outcomes designed by the white supremacists, and that only they, those dark archangels who devised this baloney, can provide the equity that's needed. That whatever racial category was imposed on you will naturally decide your ultimate fate unless they are allowed to step in and run your lives. Identity is everything. Identity politics is everything. That unique voices of each color is needed to be heard. Unique rights, special rights for each group of color needs to be implemented. In each of these intersectional races or belief systems or sexual preferences, that we can't help it because these biases have been passed down to us genetically through the generations. This false narrative is being purposely promoted, purposely embellished on. History is being purposely revised, this revisionist history, in order to stoke the fires, in order to get you against you, we against them. And then they, these dark archangels of big government, of Marxist theory, will be the saviors of our world. That's what critical race theory is. That's what Nicole Solis is concerned about. That's why Nicole Solis spoke out so strongly and eloquently. And that's why those who defend this crap retaliated so strongly against it. I was on a roll today. I went long, but I'm in Idaho. It's a place of freedom. Tomorrow, to this we've come, encore presentation. Watch the song, watch the interview. What an amazing piece of art, the arts, portraying a conservative message. Thursday, Larry Liberty Guy and Dr. Andrew Boston. From the Dugout, from Idaho, I will see you next week. Godspeed.